All right, YouTube, and video number 2 of the night. We now know that Charlie Manson, the most evil man in the world, that cunning, manipulative psychopath, that witchy wizard dude, who killed Sharon Tate's unborn fetus and ripped it right out of her stomach, has gotten a marriage license to Star Atwa. Of course, she's been dating him for quite some time, had considered herself in a de facto sense his wife anyway. What's not clear here is if this is some sort of stunt that's sort of a joke to both of them. I have to assume it would be kind of appealing to Manson's sense of humor, judging on what I personally know about Manson. Whether it's a publicity stunt or whether it's more realistic. At this point, I think probably the latter. And I may have been wrong before. I may have been wrong when I prematurely judged that this was probably some sort of stunt. Or joke on his behalf, essentially, to troll the world. I think that it was premature for this reason. I looked at the situation, I said, well, if he was trying to piss people off, even if it is just a big joke to him somehow, what does he have to lose by actually getting married? It's not going to troll people, it's going to troll people even harder. It's going to bother everybody. You see, he gets a marriage license. He's not even married her yet. He's not even come out and given any sort of sound clip or anything like that yet. And already it's on every mainstream news site that Charlie Manson's getting married. He has effectively trolled half of the world's population in less than 24 fucking hours just by getting a marriage license. These people will shit their absolute pants if he actually goes through with it. And, to tell the truth, the sort of stereotyping of Manson as being incapable of feeling otherwise human emotions, as though he's not capable of feeling romantic attachment or friendship or any of these things, I think is wrong. There's no evidence that he's actually an actual psychopath, and in lack of that evidence, I can see no reason why he wouldn't feel that way. He's getting old now. He's pushing 80. He's probably is looking for more companionship. I imagine he does get lonely. He sits in his cell constantly. Well, you can't fucking blame the dude. And here comes this, young woman who's interested in him. Why not? What? And I see people, this is the other funny thing. I see people saying, why is he allowed to get married? They shouldn't allow that. What? Someone's in prison, so they're not allowed to engage in any sort of normal behavior? I think this is what's pissing people off. See, back in like 2007, 2008, into 2009, that general region of time, years ago, when I was already involved with studying Manson, thinking about Manson stuff, listening to the music, reading books about it. There's now the new Manson File, which again is a great book by Nicholas Schreck. When I first got into it, it seemed a lot of people were pissed off by him anyway, because they said, well, he's horrible, he's evil, he's crazy, he's psycho. Everything about him is abnormal. Just look at the Tom Snyder interview. He can never act normal. They never actually listened to the phone recordings with him where he's perfectly lucid. They just fixated on a few interviews where he dances around in a stereotypical fashion. And when you faced them with evidence that he could act normal for extended periods, largely they brushed it off, didn't pay attention to it, or didn't want to look at it in the first place. When you tried to make this claim, they would just say, well, you must be manipulated by Manson. As though Manson has the ability to manipulate somebody from halfway across the country who he's never even spoken to. Apparently he's got some severe powers. I'm surprised he hasn't run for president. Theoretically, he could. Throw his hat in the ring and hypnotize everybody. But back then, it seemed that while a lot of people were pissed off at him, a lot of people also thought he was mainly amusing. That is, the way he acted was funny, and so it was kind of disarming, I guess. Others found him interesting. They found something in him that seemed sincere on a level that most people are not capable of being sincere on. Sort of like an open... I choose not to believe he's as honest as these people would think. He is a con. Maybe not a murderer, but he is guilty of a bunch of other crimes. And he is a career criminal. Let's not mince words. That's exactly what he is. No, I think no rational person denies that. They can deny that he should still be in prison for murders he had nothing to do with, but he is a career criminal. Let's just face it. They found some interest in him, or they found some inspiration in him, in his artwork. They said, well, this is, pretty cool, or they liked his music, or they thought that there was something there that most others couldn't see. And so you had a fairly large group of people who mainly thought of Manson in positive terms. They thought he was funny. They thought he was inspiring, or even some sort of leader, which again I deny. This is what they believed, though. Now, however, that Manson is older and he's doing things that would be generally considered to be normal person behavior, getting married potentially, not giving crazy interviews. The music has been rather low-key that he's put out in the last few years. When you do get sound clips, he's acting very rational, even a little bit tired, which I think is also disarming to people. The fact that he has aged so substantially since the last time there was any major appearance, I think that's what's pissing people off. I think they want that sort of crazed boogeyman that scares them in somewhere deep inside and completely disarms them and faces them with something that they're not used to. I think that's what people actually want, and the reason that so many people, far more than before, than like 5 or 6 years ago, I think the reason why so many people are so pissed off about this marriage contract, which hasn't even resulted in an actual marriage right now, I think the reason why that's pissing people off is specifically because it seems too normal. People don't want Manson to be normal. They don't want Charles Manson to do something that any other reasonable, free, not jail-going person would do. They want this boogeyman. They want to have this sort of murderous, serial killer, psychopathic witch king to talk about, somebody who's obviously crazy. Because when he acts like he's not crazy, it pisses these people off because they have this preconceived notion that because he's a psychopath, everything he does should be completely unstable, like he's supposed to walk around like Gollum, mumbling to himself. And when he doesn't fulfill that sort of stereotyped characteristic, it drives these people up the wall. You see it with the media people, with all the journalists covering this. It's on Yahoo, it's on MSNBC, it's on CNN, it's on every other fucking site you can possibly imagine. And then the people that consume that news, probably the only thing they've ever actually seen in regards to Manson would be something like the Snyder interview or the Geraldo Rivera interview. But they've never seen, and maybe the Penny Daniels or Charlie Rose interview. They've seen the ones specifically where he acts out, because those are the ones that are interesting to people and those are the ones that get spread around. But how many of these people have listened to Family Jams? How many of these people have actually listened to the music on Lie? Not very many. If you put a video of Manson's music up after a year, it might have 10,000 views if you're lucky. If you put up an interview where he's acting insane, it can hit 1 million. I've shown that myself. I've got another channel that has nothing but Manson interviews. Guess which ones are the most watched? The Snyder interview, where he's clearly medicated. The Geraldo interview, where he's talking about a bunch of racial stuff and Geraldo's egging him on. The Rose interview, where he dances around out of frustration at the end because he's clearly been in solitary for several years at a time. And that's it. All the other interviews on there where he's acting more sedate get far fewer views. People want that frightening sort of boogeyman encounter with this person that they've been told their entire life is insane. They've been told that he's Jeffrey Dahmer level, fucking Gacy the Clown level, absolute out of his mind, batshit crazy. And so when he doesn't act that way, it pisses people off. It's actually hilarious. He's trolling the entire world. He's the master troll. No other human being ever to live on the face of the earth has bothered people as much as Manson. And the culmination of this is that he no longer even has to act crazy to piss people off. He could say nothing for 5 years at a time, because for the last 5 years there hasn't been a lot of updates from Manson. There's been a few Atwa things and a few albums, and that's basically it. A little bit of artwork, some locks of hair, but there have been no big interviews of Manson. There have been no big documentaries other than one that completely and fucking utterly failed. And that's all, and a few books. But even when Nicholas Schreck's book came out, look at what happened even among some people within the Manson groups. This is why I left that sort of nonsense behind. Because his book rationalizes Manson. It shows him as something more than simply a stereotype sort of clown whore makeup wearing crazy dude. And it pissed people off. It even pisses people off that usually like Manson. Some people literally like this man because they think he's nuts. Because they're into Gacy and they're into Dahmer and they're into cannibalism and rapists and serial killers. They're actually into this sort of weird stuff. But then they get to Manson, they find that they're being challenged because this book is claiming that Manson never actually planned these murders, that he was drawn into it through a conspiracy. It's a completely different type of genre of work than the sort of true crime, true grit sort of crazy man documentary that you're used to on Manson. And it pisses people off. It's hilarious. I mean, you couldn't set up... It's effortless to him at this point. He doesn't have to put any effort whatsoever in to piss people off. All he needs is a willing accomplice on the outside, and the fact is, it's very likely that they'll get married. Can you imagine the shitstorm in the media when that happens? People will want to interview both of them. Of course, I don't think under California code they actually can interview Manson anymore. They can have a conversation with him and they can try to, take a bootleg, I guess. But I don't think they can actually do televised interviews anymore. I think they changed the law on that. I'm not sure if it applies in all scenarios. I would argue that's unconstitutional. It's fucking ridiculous for California to do anything like that anyway. At least give people their entertainment, I guess, since 99% of people seem entertained by Manson, even if they do think he's crazy. I don't think he's crazy. I think he's very, very bored, very, very old, and he's getting tired of that bullshit. I think he stopped acting out specifically because it was no longer funny to him. Because he realized he's not actually going to get parole. He's going to be in there until he dies. He's not dumb. He realizes that this is the case. And so he had no reason not to. And then they stopped doing interviews. They said, well, fuck it. Doesn't matter. Down the line, he decides to get a marriage contract, and it stokes it right back up again. It's Manson mania for the next 48 hours, probably. I mean, people are talking about Ferguson. They're also talking about Charles Manson. I bet if I check the trends right now, I wouldn't be surprised to see Charles Manson on here. I wouldn't be surprised in the fucking least. Let's see if I'm right. Yeah, I may be wrong, but, nope. Let me see. No, that's worldwide trends. We don't want that. I don't even know how to change this. Nah. Fuck it, I don't even know how to use Twitter half the time. I know how to tweet, and that's about it. But no, I mean, all of these major sites are talking about Charlie getting married. All he did was get a marriage contract. He hasn't even had a ceremony yet. He doesn't even get conjugal visits if he does get married because he's a lifer. So these people are so inordinately worried about the issue. It's like a bad tabloid or some weird soap opera plot. But I can admire his trolling capabilities. I wish I could troll people that hard. I wish that I could sign one piece of paper once in my life that would cause 100 million people to have a conniption fit. That'd be hilarious. The level of trolling is far in excess of 9,000 at this point with Manson. It's in excess of 900 million probably, because people in other countries think about Manson just as much as people over here do. He's an American criminal, and yet you find people talking about him in Europe, Australia, Asia. You wouldn't believe, by the way, I'll say this last thing. On some of the Manson videos that I've got on my other channel, you wouldn't believe where the actual views are coming from. A lot of them are from Latin America, and most of the rest are from Europe. There are actually relatively few coming from the United States compared to these other countries, despite the fact that the United States is disproportionately overrepresented on YouTube. You wouldn't believe it. If you did the math on it, you'd find it's a rate 3 or 4 times higher for some of these European countries. People in Finland love Manson, apparently. People in Germany, for some reason, have a thing for Charles Manson. I don't understand it myself, but he's popular all over the world. Everybody knows his name, and it's pissing them off because he's not acting crazy enough. So while I no longer consider myself like Atwar or supporter or even really fan of Manson, I have to begrudgingly admire his capability of trolling people. And I think it would be dishonest to discount Star's role in all of it as well. And it's probably is. She's in love with him. So, why does the media fucking care? 2 people are getting married. Does it matter that one of them's Charles Manson? Some of this media firestorm is completely undeserved. It's not really a major issue. It'd be one thing, You know, when Manson was caught with a fucking cell phone, it was front page news. It's a cell phone. He was using it to call people to make recordings. Anything he does, it literally causes a media sensation. It's very funny, and I'll be looking forward to it. I bet anything that such a marriage will be recorded in some form, I'm sure, for public consumption. Can you imagine what people on MSNBC and Yahoo News are going to say about that? Oh, the divine, glorious trolling. It'll be so great. You can't even imagine how awesome it's going to be. That's about all. So, yeah, happy wedding, I guess, to Star and Charlie. I can't get enough of the amusement from this. I mean, I could troll these news articles for the next 48 hours and not even sleep. But, yeah, that's about all. Peace out.